welcome again to the Three Blind Mice Show. And I'm joined as always by my compadres in crime, Jim Borgia, sounds like Georgia, and Don Nardo Nardecchia. How you doing tonight, man?
It's all a good night.
Real good.
There we go.
Real
well, we hope. We're watching the Tribe and trying to do this all at the same time. This is crazy.
Gotta go back to Cleveland 1-1.
Yeah, I hope so. We got tickets for the game on Friday night, so I hope that's
right.
a good sign.
Gotta rub it in our face.
Yep. It's always good to have a connection at the top.
Yep.
But anyway, we have a special guest tonight, Brad Huntley, longtime official, BAOA member. I know we all know Brad from the meetings, and we all know him from football. I mean, he is the football guru. So we're just happy to have him. He's worked state finals, all kinds of playoff games, and he's pretty well known around at least this area. So we're happy to have him with us today, and let's welcome Brad into the show.
Hey, there he is. How you doing, Brad?
Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Oh, we're doing all right.
Who walked in?
Go Tribe.
Go Tribe, baby.
You got it.
So, Jimmy, you wanted to start us off tonight, you said.
Well, you had quite a resume here from what I've looked over in our pregame stuff. Can you kind of help us go back to where you started and how you climbed the ladder of success, so they may say?
Sure. It was a long road to success. A lot of people were involved, but it all started, back in the early 1990s. I was at a high school football game, and we're sitting in the stands, and I told my wife, because I played football, boy, I really miss this. And she said, why don't you become a coach? And I thought, Margie, there's no way I could become a coach. And she said, well, why don't you become an official? And the light went on. And that following Monday, I wrote a letter to the OHSAA and said, hey, I'd like to become a football official. And they responded and put me in touch with Larry Last, who we all know. And Larry reached out and said, we're going to be teaching a class in about 2 months. So I went and took the class 2, went through the entire instruction and passed that, and then off you go, and you're off to start working. And for me, it was, you gain knowledge by reading books, you gain experience by doing things. And so I decided, if I'm going to be good at this thing, which I wanted to be, that I'm going to have to go out and get experience. So my first year of football, I worked about 85 games. In my second year, I worked 85 games. And I would even work games for free. So they already had 4 officials or 3 officials. I'd go and work it anyway because I wanted the experience. Got to know a lot of other officials by doing that. And then, back then officials weren't in shortage. And so you had to wait to be offered a position on a crew. And I was fortunate. I was offered a couple positions. I broke in at head linesman and worked head linesman for 10 years. And then, the referee in our crew got sick, unfortunately, and he asked me to take over the crew. And then from there, we just built it. And Don was a key part. Don and I were very much involved with a thing called the North Coast Football Clinic. And there you got to listen to a lot of the college officials talk about mechanics and how to work the games. And so it was, and then, getting down the road and became a rules interpreter. And
Hey, Brad, we got one picture that you don't know about.
Oh, really?
Check this out.
How about that?
Don, is this proof of what I had? Is this proof you had Brad at one point in time had hair?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that goes for everybody in that picture.
I mean, look at this. Holy smokes.
Man, alive, look at that picture.
That's why he's wearing his hat tonight.
College.
Hey, me too, baby. Me too.
That's Tim Campbell there, isn't it? Is that Timmy Campbell?
Yeah, that's Tim, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, wow.
Well, do you know what Tim is doing right now on the side?
I have no idea.
I actually ran into him. He is a guide at the Christmas Story Museum in Medina.
Really?
What is it? The something Castle Noel. I knew he'd come to me. He was
that's
the
like-
very first guy that you see that takes you around that place. He's hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
And Timmy was a great official.
Yeah.
Very good official. So
Yeah, he was good at football, good at basketball, but boy, he was phenomenal at baseball.
I heard.
He worked the plate on a number of state championship games. He's just all around sharp, very sharp.
Yeah.
Good guy,
Anytime he'd be out of town, he would let Timmy be his referee. And we actually worked a St. Francis Massillon game. And I was his head linesman for the game. Phenomenal game. So
yeah, he's such a good guy.
Yeah. And then, and then I was just fortunate to be with all the involvement and doing everything. I was selected to work 3 state finals, which, when you go to an event like that, you're thinking, why me? I was fortunate, and I was also blessed to work with a lot of great football officials that were on the cruise. So, and 30 years later, I'm retired now from football. So,
well, Father Time's still undefeated as far as I know.
Well, it wasn't Father Time. It was a piece of ice in an end zone on a state semifinal, leaving the game that I stepped on. And tore the meniscus in my left knee. So
well, that'll do it.
That was it. So
yeah,
that'll do it.
Things after the game.
Yeah.
Well, you talked a little bit about how you got on a crew, how you moved up within the crew, build a crew, and those crews are your family for 10 Friday nights in the fall. But it's a lot different with playoff crews, whereas you've been putting them together yourself. The state picks the people that you're going to work with. So after 10 weeks and maybe a couple of scrimmages on top of that with your regular group, now you start all over trying to make, in the first week of the playoffs, make that group look like they've been together all year. So how'd you work on that? How'd you do that?
Well, it's a great question, Tom, because there's, and maybe some of the guys or one or two of the guys, but because when you get on a playoff crew like that, you may have a back judge from Youngstown and a head linesman that lives down in Canton, and you never worked with him or never even met him. And so what I would do is and you want to, if we specifically talk about working the state finals when you meet that crew for the first time, is I call them a week before the playoffs would start. So maybe between week 9 and 10, and just a quick introduction and request that they be there 2 hours before kickoff. And then if it was a stadium I knew, then we would have a paper pregame. I have things printed out and involve everybody. But as we went on through that crew, as that crew progressed, we would do film review at every game. During the week, we'd review film. We'd look at everything mechanically. Everybody was reminded to please leave their ego at the door. But I don't know if the rest of you guys have heard of it, Jim or Rick, but in the state of Ohio, they have a thing called the Gold Book. And it was put together 14 years ago by Bruce Maurer. And it really aided in being able to take 6 officials that had never worked together and make them look like week 1 in the playoffs that they'd been together for 15 years. And so, but then you'd review the film, and the following week, you'd find where the mistakes were. And I'd always start out with me. I'd always point out a couple things that I needed to work on. And then from there, we'd progress through the rest of the crew. And all 3 runs through the state finals. That's the way we did it. And so, but supposedly you're working the best of the best. But still, everybody still needs work. You find me an official that says they're working perfect games, they still have things they need to work on.
Rick always thought that.
Especially that guy over there.
Yes.
He hasn't worked a perfect game in his life, that guy. I'll tell you that right now.
I had the mafia connection. They didn't have to worry about it. Even though Don's Italian,
But
I got a signal for that,
I had to tell you a story that so we were working the first state semifinal. We were down in Dayton, Ohio, and we had Elder against Pick Central, and it was a big game, and Bruce Maurer couldn't make it to the game.
Okay.
And it was the weekend of Thanksgiving, and we worked on a Saturday, and so I got home, and Bruce would, if he was at your game, he would give you your observation. Well, he couldn't make the game, so he emailed it to me. And I'm reading this email of Bruce Maurer's observation of the game, and it was the longest email you can believe. And at the very bottom, it said, "I didn't have time, but I'll send you quarter 2, 3, and 4 later."
Oh, boy.
I went, "Oh my goodness." So I called the crew, and Bruce was always one that he would really pick you apart to get you to raise your level and really get you to focus on it. And so it was a big help. He's been a big contributor to the officials in the state of Ohio. So
yeah, he definitely made a difference in the football program. I loved his little weekly blurbs of, "Hey, this happened. Don't do this again."
yeah,
I like those. Those were like, lessons learned.
I still look for those.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Friday afternoon, I'm sitting around, and all of a sudden, I think, let's see what he's talking about to the officials this week.
And he was hard on the wings. If you were a wing and Bruce Maurer was there, get ready for a rough evening of observation. So
yeah, I think he was a wing is why. I think that was his deal in the NFL, I believe.
Well, he actually worked 4 different positions in the NFL.
Yeah.
He was a deep wing. He was a wing. I think he did back judge, but he was 15 years in the NFL. So a lot of great stories.
Yeah, I would not have been one of those guys in the on that Big Ten Ohio State Oregon game after the game. I bet you they got some nice reviews. Well, I know the one penalty that the too many men on the field, they actually changed that rule today. So you can no longer do that, and they run time. That's all changed.
They don't run time on the offensive team if they're behind for a defensive player or a defensive penalty.
Yeah, that changed completely.
And I think in our rule book that, because Bruce used to talk about using common sense when you come down the stretch on time consumption and things like that. We don't have a runoff, but in that case, he'd say, "Hey, if they lost time on the play, so don't start it till the snap.
Right.
Don't take time off of it." But I figured that would happen. And I saw an article in the paper today that the coach from Oregon all but admitted that's why he had a 12th guy in the field.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
The TV guys picked it up real quick.
Oh,
they said, "Hey, there's confusion on the defense," but yet nobody came out. They ran the play, and what's a 5-yard penalty if you're going to lose a play? So
yeah, that was very interesting.
They adjusted that rule, and rightly so. I'm surprised they did it mid-season, but
yeah.
Hey, you mentioned watching film for your pregame. How'd you do that? I mean, you know some of these schools, but did you take something yourself, or did they?
Yeah, I took a projector and a computer with me to every game, and I had a small projector, and we'd find a place, and during the week we got the huddle film, we'd get it. The coaches in the playoff runs were wonderful, so we'd have that film by Saturday afternoon, Sunday, and then I'd have a couple of us going through it. So we'd have more than one guy going through, picking out plays, and then when we got to the locker room, we would have probably 15, 18 plays to talk about. Some of the guys that already saw it and knew what the mistakes that were made, but it was never about penalties. We stayed away from penalties. It was always about mechanics, because if you're in the right place, you'll see what's important and what should be called. And that's just the key thing. And you see officials that, I heard an official one time say, we were working a game and we were all over. We had 5 beanbags down. And you say, well, that's the worst thing I can think of. And he said, well, why do you say that? It means I got 5 guys watching the football.
Yep.
If you want to watch the game, buy a ticket and sit in the stands. I want maybe 1 or 2 down. I want the guys that are supposed to be watching that.
Absolutely.
The rest of you don't watch the ball. You watch players. So, but film's a key part of it, huge part of it. So
yeah. And that has become so commonplace now for officials as compared to, oh gosh, maybe 15 years ago. We used to maybe late in the week we'd get we'd give the coaches a blank cassette tape,
Yeah.
and ask them if they could make a copy of their game film and send. We have it all stamped up with the amount that it would cost to send those to us. And sometimes we get them by Thursday. Sometimes you never see them again. But it was just the coaches that would help you out that way, because they would say, well, that's great, you guys look at the film, or that's great, you guys talk about it on the way home. A lot of coaches think these guys just walk out of here and don't think another thing of it, and that's not the way it is anymore.
Yeah,
No.
we started with cassettes, then we went to CDs, and then Huddle. The next thing you know, Huddle came out, and then but they wanted a lot of money for a crew to join, so we were able to get Cleveland. I'm also a member of the Cleveland Association, and they allowed us to piggyback it and help
theirs. Yeah, that was a great help. Yeah,
huge help.
Yeah, it very neat. But
and film became a big thing in the Bay Area. That's when I was a rules interpreter. We spent probably 80% of our time reviewing film.
And that's the best thing.
Not just reading it to people, so.
Yeah, too many guys are not in the right spot, and that's why things are missed or things are miscalled, because they're to a point where they have to take a guess because they're not where they should be. And the Gold Book put it right there. You don't do what you see the guys on Saturday afternoon and Saturday night doing. You don't do what the guys on Sunday do, because they've got different mechanics. The Ohio Gold Book that Bruce started was just a godsend. And I know one of the previous interpreters, he wasn't very impressed with it until after about 3 years. He saw when he was working a playoff game with other guys, it was a lot more uniform than back in. The second time I worked playoffs, I was from the Northwest District, based in Sandusky, living in Norwalk. And I was with 4 guys from the Southeast, like Chillicothe and South. And, they spoke different. But
what?
They're
what do you mean,
If I had
Don?
lived here, I'd have understood them better. But
What are you trying to say, Don?
Don, what do you?
We had a good pregame, because as a Hall of Fame guy that was back, the referee and the umpire were both Hall of Fame guys. The umpire, he had a habit of kids kind of lip off or something inside. He was chewing tobacco back in those days. He'd spit tobacco juice on their shoes.
Hey, whatever works.
And he was known
Uncle
for that
Tony.
around there.
Yeah,
Uncle Tony.
Yes.
Yep. So, well, good. Let's take a break here. I think we've got some business to take care of. Then we'll be back.
Yes, absolutely. We
Brad
want to let everybody know that our book is not only available on Amazon still, and Amazon Kindle, of course, but if you're in the local area, there's an awesome little store in downtown Norwalk. It's called the Common Good Collective. They are selling our books at a reduced price of $15. And not only that, those books are all signed by all 3 authors. So what do you guys say about that, Don and Jim?
Well, that's a great place. You go in there for a book, you'll be looking at lots of, I'll tell you what, guys, if you go looking for a book and take the ladies with you, you'll have bought in that book and read a couple chapters by the time they get done shopping in that store. And likewise, ladies, if you're going up there, you may want to pick one up for your husband. It's or your son. It's a fun read about athletics and what you don't, what basketball officials do. It's
Absolutely.
Just, yeah.
So now that we're back from that quick little break, I think maybe we should ask Brad here. Do you have any crazy situations or funny stories that happened to you, like during a game, before a game, after a game? I mean, you don't have to give us names because we want to protect the innocent.
Well, you always remember those plays that didn't exactly go right, And I've made my fair share of phone calls on Monday morning to tell a coach I'd cut the grass or wash a car. It was those plays that you remember. That I remember we were working the 100th anniversary game in Sandusky, and it was a big game because it was against Fremont Ross.
Fremont.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Fremont Sandusky game, and all the hype and a sellout crowd, and Sandusky was winning the game 6-0. They had the ball in their own 40, and they decided to go for it. And the quarterback took the ball from Sandusky and stuck it through the line of scrimmage in between the tackle and the guard, hoping that he would get enough for the first down. Well, the Fremont kid saw the ball, and he grabbed it, and he fell backwards on the ground, and nobody saw him. And he got up, and he ran around the end. And where I was at, I'm 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. All of a sudden, I see a Fremont kid with the ball. Everybody in the stands knew that player had been down, and we gave him the touchdown.
Oh boy.
To this day, I still apologize to Jim Bolenbacher for that situation. But another funny story is it happened at a playoffs, and I was working a playoff game in Lorain. And every year I would take my younger brother, who was not an official, to a playoff game. And he loved to go. So we're working Lorain, and and Chuck Caskey and his son Brandon were with me, and we're working this big playoff game. And I said to Brian, my brother, now Brian, we use headsets to communicate. Would you like one? He said, I'd love it. I said, no, Brian, you can't talk because our voices are very similar. And if you ask a dumb question, they're going to think it's me, and I'm the referee. So we went out, we did the coin toss, we went in the locker room, and the observers were in there, and it was time to take the field. And we get out, and we're standing out there for the Pledge of Allegiance. And we have our hats off across our, and we're listening to this thing, and I hear on my mic, Brad. And I said, Brian, I told you you're not supposed to talk in the microphone. And Brian said, yeah, but you guys ran out of the locker room so fast. I'm locked in the bathroom under the stands. Can you come and get me?
Oh crap.
He was inducted into the Business Hall of Fame in Sandusky. I told that story to a group, and it was pretty good. So, but there, you learn so many stories that it's part of the fun of the journey of being an official. So,
when I look back, and we had some really nice games, but there was one play that I was involved in that it's just funnier than heck. And Baldy Cromer was the referee, and it's the first time I'd refereed with Baldy ever. And he was a screwball at the meetings, but he was a damn good official, damn good referee. So we're at Southview up in Sylvania, back when they shared a field with Northview. And they were playing somebody from over, might have been Avon or somebody over in the Cleveland area. And the one guy that was on the visiting team sideline, I think it was his last season. He was from Lima. Not sure of his name. He wasn't very big, but he wasn't very good. And it didn't take very many plays for us to find out about that. So, as a back judge, I'm kind of laying over by his head. Where we really saw we had to do something. One of the teams ran for about 25 yards down that sideline, and he was 35 yards behind it. How he figured out where to put the ball when it went out of bounds, I have no guess. Probably he did have a guess.
Yeah.
But
There you go.
in that game, there was an interception, and I was following the play because being a back judge, I'm back with defensive backs. There was an interception, and the kid started to run towards the Southview bench. And as he was starting to turn it up, he got blindsided, which now you can't do. But back then, as long as you kept your helmet out of it, it was a legal block. I mean, he knocked this player right on his keister. and I'm coming up behind it, and the runner's going on past now. And I get there quick enough to hear this guy from the other school, or from Southview, standing over this guy that he just laid out going, "You're my bitch, you MFer."
Oh,
And it's
nice.
like, no flag. So after the run was ended, the return was ended, I wanted to tell Baldy what the penalty was. And usually you'd tell the official on that wing so he could go tell the coach. But I said, listen, this one was my call on his interception. I'm going to go over and tell the coach exactly what he said. And I'm getting over there. He goes, that better not be a what do you say? You better not call a clip on that. That was not a clip. And I said, no, sir, it wasn't. It's an unsportsmanlike penalty. He goes, an unsportsmanlike penalty for what? And I told him, he goes, oh,
What
is
number?
it still our ball? And I said, it's still your ball. Yeah. He goes, thank you very much, sir. He turned and he used more brightly, very bright four-letter words on that kid on the sideline when he got over there. Didn't cost him the interception, but I think they end up getting the ball back near midfield. And that was just one of those things where you do your job, you kind of tail it. The hot spot was where that block was, and he was right over top of him. He never saw me coming. He taunting him to no end, saying that, and I heard what he said. So.
Yeah. A lot of great stories.
Yeah.
One I'll never forget, real quick one here. We were working a game in Lorraine. It was Admiral King and Southview. And Southview had not beaten Admiral King in 15 years. And so Admiral King scored, and they were going to kick an extra point to make the score, to take them within a point. And the Admiral King holder was in place to get the ball, and he muffed it. With that, he stood up and he ran around right end, right at my head linesman. He dove for the pylon, but he was way short. But my head linesman was out of position and signaled the point was good. 2-point conversion. So Tony Shoulders was the coach of Southview, called timeout and asked me to come over. And this was a TV game. And I came over and Coach Shoulders looked at me and he goes, I don't think he got in. I think he was short. I said, I think so too, Coach. He goes, what? He says, you're not going to change it? I said, it's not tennis. I said, I was 40 yards away. You were 60. And he said, I said, it's going to have to stand. He goes, well, would you do me a favor? He said, would you let me look like I'm yelling at you? And so at least I can pump my team up. Meanwhile, the TV guys are saying, if Coach Shoulders doesn't watch it, he's going to get ejected. And Tony Shoulders stood there and said, boy, it's a lovely evening out here. It's a great football game. He said, you're working a good game other than that call. And I said, Coach, he'll be buying beers and cleaning cleats for the next 6 weeks, so don't worry. And just the little stories like that, we still talk about them today. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had the pleasure of calling one of your games. I believe it was at Perkins. I was working for Buckeye Cable Sports Network. And I came down to the field and talked to you before the game. And it was you and your crew. And it was funny. I mean, you guys had a great game. It was easy to call. I think they were playing Edison. I think that's right.
Or could have been Huron.
It could have been Huron. But I do remember one play in particular that your back judge, he had a great call. I saw it. He had a pass interference call. It was across the middle. He had grabbed the kid and turned him. And the funny part of that whole thing is they wanted me to go over it play by play in replay. Well, that's great, except for one thing. Our replay TV didn't work. So the producer goes, now I'm just going to start it, and you just kind of fake like you're hearing it or you're seeing it and just talk through it. So that's exactly what I did. I said, well, the pass came across the middle. He grabbed him by the hip and turned him. And after we went to break, he said, that was crazy. It was almost like you saw it. As you were saying it, it was happening. And I was like, well, I just repeated what I saw. But, the funniest thing about working that side of the games is they always ask you about what's going on the field. I mean, that's normal because you're in that booth with everybody, you know. But they always ask you these obscure rules that happened like last week or last month. You know, like what's this? What's that? I'm like, can't I just get ready for the show? I don't know.
Yeah.
What the hell? You know, so, but yeah, I did have the privilege of that. The funniest football story I ever had, it was a lower level game. I'm not going to tell you where or what level because, you know, they might be watching. But I'm working the line, and I'm right next to the coach, and there's this mom in the stands, and she's yelling constantly. And she's not yelling at us. She's not yelling at the team. She's yelling at her child. And she's like, yeah, no, you don't do any better. I'm going to pull you off. I'm going to pull you off. So I'm like, what the hell? You know, I'm like, whatever. You know, so we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, the kids are in the huddles. Mom comes right beside me on the field, walks right out to the huddle, grabs kid by the face mask, and walks him off. And the coach looked at me and he goes, isn't that a penalty, or aren't you going to do anything? And I'm like, no, coach, but I do have something for you. He said, what's that? I said, I think you need a sub. I'm like, well, he goes,
Are you sure that wasn't Sherry?
No. I'm like, are you nuts? I'm not going to stop this, Mom. What the hell's wrong with you? I'm just going to watch her go right. And she walked right by me on the way out with him. And I'm like, well, easy come, easy
Brad,
go.
you've worked 3 state championship games, and you know, with those being on TV and you know, the whole state's watching, and there's a lot going on around that game that affects the officials in one way or another that nobody sees, and because it only is that game, I suppose you've got more people in the locker room trying to tell you how things are going to go and what you need. Run through some of that stuff, because it's pretty amazing. You work football for now 15 weeks, and everybody wants to give you a little bit of wisdom to go work the game.
Actually, Don, they don't really do what happens is the first state final I worked, we actually were, the OHSAA van met us at the Marriott Courtyard north of the stadium. And then they would bus us in the white OHSAA van and pull down below and underneath the everything. And it's a complex. Tom Benson Stadium is unbelievable. And you go into the officials' locker room, and there are people in there involved. I mean, your people are going to be doing the picture taking, replays down there. You've got Bruce's down there, Bo's down there, and you're really you get your own little locker, and you're really getting ready to go. There's a big clock up on the wall that has 90 minutes on it. And when it starts to count down, then everything begins. And so, but everything is on a sheet of paper that you're given beforehand, depending on what your game time is, on when you are to, the home team is to come on the field, the visitors come on the field, even going back to what time we're supposed to do the coin toss. It is to be done 20 minutes prior to kickoff. You meet with the captains, and you're mic'd for everything. And in my last 2 years of state finals, we had instant replay. And so then you're going over, and prior to the game, putting the headset on and communicating with replay. We had Chad Adams, who was an NFL official, and Ken Myers, who works in Missouri Valley Conference, as our replay officials. I will tell you, in the 2 years I did state finals, we never had a call to have reviewed. But just for everybody's edification, and Don, we talked about this the other day, when you hear the referee come over and say, the referee will say 3 things. He'll either say, after further review, the ruling on the field is confirmed, or he'll say, after further review, the ruling on the field stands, or he'll change the play. Now, I thought the difference between stands and confirmed was just the referee's preference on what terms they want to use. And that's not the case. If you don't have enough video evidence to make a change, the play on the field goes as stands. If there is evidence to overturn it, they'll say confirmed. And next to the replay, the referee is another official with a pad writing. If there's going to be a change, he's the scribe, and he's going to write everything down. What the time was in the clock, yard line, down, what position you were in the field, right hash, in between the middle and the right hash, middle, and then over to the other side. So that everything's going to be exact. And then as the referee, when there's something has changed, you have to announce all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the reason the scribe's there, to also tell you everything. But it's an experience that you go out, your pictures are being taken, you've got the two teams coming on, and this is the ultimate game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we say as officials, every game matters, but this is a long journey for the teams. And so there's a little bit more riding on it for them. And you just really want to do your absolute best. And one thing Bruce Maurer always told me, and I told my crews, when you get out there, just slow down. And one thing replay will also tell you, be slow on your whistle, because I can't bring that player back in bounds, or I can't bring his knee off of the ground, or I can't help the other team with a fumble if you've already blown it dead. So
right.
By all means, be slow on the whistles, but it's quite an experience. And so Bruce Maurer comes in at halftime, reviews things with you, and then at the end of the game, you'll see him to go over the final thoughts on the game. But it's unlike any other run that you can have. So, and I have three of them. So
yeah, that sounds great. Well, in closing, Jimmy, you got anything?
Well, as you're talking about slow, don't blow the whistle so quick, I said, I've talked to people. I go to the local rec center, and people know that I officiate, and then they offer their condolences when they find out who my partners are.
Right. Yeah, that's what it is.
And it's the fact that they make a comment, and I said, did you ever go to a game and you're watching the crowd? You can see it just as plain as a nose on your face, and the fans and the coaches and the players are all reacting. I says, you know what? I says, first of all, we got to think, did we see it right? Second of all, we got to send that message to our brain. Hey, you got to put a little air in that whistle to do what you got to do. And it might take, some people might think it might take a couple of minutes, but it's a matter of just maybe 5 to 10 seconds that all that is going on. I had a game one time where I was on the baseline, and the kid went to the corner. I slid out with him, and I just happened to, watch it. And I'm thinking, there's no way in hell that this kid's not going to make contact with that kid when he comes down. And I'm already inhaling. He come down. I don't know how he did it. He turned his body sideways, and he just kind of like brushed him. And I'm already putting air into my whistle. And, I yelled at my partner. I said, take the ball here. It's going to be their ball. And I got to go explain it to both coaches. And I explained it to the one coach. He said, but how can that be their ball? How can that be their ball? You blew the whistle. He fouled our guy. I said, no, coach, that ain't the way it is. I said, it was your guy. They're going to get the ball back because I just was a little ahead of myself. There was no foul, but if you want to do, okay. So anyway.
the old whistle, yeah.
That's it, baby.
I had a great story coming down the home stretch of my career. I worked a game at Mogador, which I thought was going to be really fun because they had so many great games with St. Paul in the playoffs, many of them that I saw. And so going to Little Mogador was going to be fun. And then I see that Howie Dent from Mansfield, a good friend, is on the crew. And I said, well, this is really going to be fun. And then I saw Jeff Brooks, who's a young guy. Well, at the time, he was still just, a young official. And Brooksy, I don't know if he's still officiating, maybe basketball. I don't know if he's doing football or not. But so we get there like Brad said, 2 hours before games, first time we were going to work together. and just sitting in there, and our referee's a younger guy who was from Fremont, and we get to talking, and we kind of go around the table, and I said, guys, this game means so much to me because it's like a landmark that it's great working with Howie. We're the two old guys on the crew. You young guys, it's your game in the future. But I said, besides working with Howie, our back judge Jeff played in the very first playoff game I ever officiated. And I said he was playing over at Bellevue, and for Seneca East. And our referee goes, who were they playing that night? And I said, Fremont St. Joe. He goes, yeah, I was the quarterback for St. Joe. So, yeah, on that game. And I probably worked 2 more years in that game working with a good friend, Howie. And I had a kid from each team that I had in my first playoff game. I thought that was kind of ironic, and somebody somewhere saying, yep, it's time.
Oh, yeah. Well, I will say this, Howie is a legend because he's actually in our book. So that tells you, it's not just us, he's actually in the book. So
and he lives down here by me now. He's about 25 miles. I was going to call him a couple of weeks ago, see if he wanted to go see a game, because Seneca, where I live, is doing well, and Daniel, which is the Clemson high school, they're always doing well. But when I saw the weather forecast that this hurricane may be coming our way, and then the team started moving the games up. They didn't move them up, and they were going to move them to Saturday. There was too much damage in the area that they canceled them, and so next week they're both home, so I'm going to give Howie a call, see if he wants to venture out. Yeah.
Well, Brad, thanks again for joining us tonight. We appreciate all your input and things we'd never even heard before, because we were never blessed enough to work a state game. So thanks again, and we appreciate it and look forward to seeing you again sometime.
Thank you guys very much for having me on, and good luck. I'll have to stop over to Norwalk and buy a book.
Yeah, you'll love it.
I definitely will. Sounds like it's going to be a good read.
Yeah.
And so
it's a lot of fun. It's stories in the car going to games, stories in the locker room before or after the game, some interaction with coaches and stories about that. It's all in all, it kind of gives you the insight of what we go through, and the crazy thing that's basketball season. And Rick wrote a piece, and I put some crazy stories in about some game experiences in football too.
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely,
it's a fun read.
But I will tell you, Brad, now there is a disclaimer here. If you see the stories that all 3 of us wrote a part of, 2 of them are telling the truth. The other guy, this guy over there,
this guy's right. His
story is
similar to mine.
Get over here. This guy down here.
Fabricated.
Yeah. They were 3 sheets to the wind. They were 3 sheets to the wind.
Come on, Brad. Who are you going to believe? Your football buddies or this guy?
Yeah, I know.
Come on now. Come
on. Nobody edited anybody. Nobody said that wasn't right. We just put it together in each of our eyes. Usually.
Yeah, they couldn't see the road. It was a good thing I was driving that night.
And you never have to defend a flag you didn't throw.
That's right, Jen. That's right. All right, guys. Thanks again, and
thank you
very much next time.
All right.
Great having you.